Today we're going to talk about nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is messages that are expressed by other than linguistic means. So, using signs, using like thumbs up or okay, or shrugs or eye rolls or tone of voice or tone volume, or many other things, which we're going to talk about the elements. All these things are nonverbal communication. Now let me ask you this, and I want you to think about this for a minute. Is sign language verbal or nonverbal communication? I'm going to go on the theory of right because I know y'all are smart. But sign language is verbal communication because it is language. It is based on rules. So sign language is verbal, not nonverbal. So we're talking about those things that don't fall into the realm of verbal communication. Now, before we get really into the very specifics of the nonverbals, let's talk about this. Nonverbal behavior has or does have communicative value. There is a reason that we have it. It matters. It means that it's much more than nonverbal. In fact, in 1964, through a couple of studies, Albert Morabian established that 55% of communication is facial expression, 38% of communication is how we say the words, and only 7% of what is said, or 7% makes up of the actual words that you are saying. That's a significant difference. That means that 93% of the communication that happens is based solely on nonverbal communications. Now, let me just point out that that has been debunked. A couple of people did some research on this, spoke with Albert Morabian, and found out a few things. The first thing Albert said is that those numbers that are given are actually been misquoted by him. That is when emotions and words are at odds with each other. So you're mad, but you're saying, no, I'm fine. Those kind of things, where obviously you're mad, you're upset, you're crying, but yet you're claiming that you're fine. The other thing that we found is that the studies that Albert Morabian did were actually, they studied 30 female psychology students using a tape recorded word, single word, what? And that's the basis of the study. So it's a very narrow study. It is not expansive enough to really give it. But the reality of it is that it is showing that there is a lot of information in nonverbal communication. Next, not only does it have communicative value, it is also primarily relational. It is the idea that we talk with nonverbals, or we express nonverbals relationally to whom we're dealing with. If you have two different people listening to one person and recognizing, they're going to see difference in the nonverbals, especially if it's a friend versus a family member. So these are issues that make it. It can be very specific to certain relationships, and it must be pulled into context. The next one is ambiguous. It is ambiguous. Nonverbals are ambiguous, meaning that they have many meanings. Just because we think this is peace, it could also be victory. You can say that thumbs up means okay or good job, but in other cultures it might mean up yours. So when you look at this, you got to think that nonverbals do not convey all the same information to the same people. So they are ambiguous, but they are essential. You must actually pay attention. They matter. Like Albert Morabian said, 93%. One book we had showed it more like a 60-40 or a 70-30 split, with the larger number being nonverbals. Nonverbals make up a lot of our communication skill. They are very essential. And if you've ever seen that stereotypical stereotypical movie of the student that suffers from Asperger's or whatever, and they're very literal and they don't recognize nonverbals, they don't pick up on sarcasm, they don't do any of that. That's actually called nonverbal learning disorder. And it really inhibits their ability to communicate because so much is nonverbal, they don't pick up on those random cues. So quick recap, nonverbal behavior has communicative value, it is primarily relational, it's ambiguous, and it's essential.